Back in the early 1990s, a series of events took place that would lead to the largest cleanup of hazardous waste in Texas history. It was nothing short of a shotgun wedding between Alcoa and 5 government agencies, forced to work together to fix a serious problem. And in the beginning, no one had any idea how things would turn out. Our story starts in Lavaca Bay. The year is 1993.
Port Lavaca, Texas has long been the home of both fishing and chemical industries. In the late 60s and early 70s, the Aluminum Company of America, Alcoa, dumped as much as 67 pounds of mercury a day into Lavaca Bay, contaminating what was once a public food source.
The health department closed portions of the bay in 1988 for fin fishing and shell fishing. And the information that we have from the health department is that one heavy meal for a pregnant woman could cause birth defects.
Oh no, they didn't know. I don't think they knew.
So he wants to put in just...
Raynell Silcox is a Parks and Wildlife attorney. She worked on the case throughout the 1990s.
I don't think they knew that mercury bioaccumulates, you know, that it doesn't go away, that it never goes away, it just keeps accumulating in your body.
Yeah, the levels that we found in Lavaca Bay were the highest we've seen anywhere within the state, even to this date.
Kirk Wiles is an investigator with the Texas Department of State Health Services.
In those early days, there really was not a lot of information out on mercury contamination in seafood. It was a hotly debated issue.
Texas Department of Health has closed this area because of mercury contamination from Alcoa aluminum plant.
I believe in good, sound scientific data, and the data tends to indicate there is a problem, and this is why the health department did close down this area to fishing.
All right, those years?
The stakes are high in Port Lavaca and throughout the state. Texas residents face difficult dilemmas.
I have 3 children. I have one boy that's 13, I have one boy that's 11, and then I have a little girl that's 7. It bothers me greatly that because I chose to live here and the lifestyle that I have may be affecting my children now, and that bothers me a great deal.
We've got to conserve energy and natural resources today. We can't wait for tomorrow.
When I first began in 1975 trying to deal with the issue of fish contamination in Lavaca Bay, industries in the area were in probably a state of denial.
But vast improvements in the field of toxicology meant that industry could no longer ignore how pollutants impacted the environment. And increased public awareness created pressure on companies to act more responsibly. Meanwhile, nothing was being done to clean up the bay.
We had a large portion of Lavaca Bay that was closed to any consumption of fish. And where do we start?
Ken Rice is the Natural Resource Damage Coordinator for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
We've been working on this project for over 15 years. And the turning point came about when this particular site was declared a Superfund site in 1994.
Though many believe the mercury has stayed in a local area, the full extent of the pollution is unclear. Comprehensive and expensive studies are needed to determine the scope of the problem.
To determine how we will restore this area, or if we restore this area. The cost to go in here and get up contaminated sediment and put the bay bottom back to what it originally was, you're talking lots of money.
Total length 917, species code 625.
The technology may not be there right now, but through these test studies and things, we'll come up with it. Nobody ever said this job would be easy, though. We're very right in saying this was not going to be an easy job. It's been a long road. It's been a difficult road.
The cleanup of Lavaca Bay was shaping up to be complicated and expensive, and the legal logistics overwhelming. 3 state agencies, 2 federal agencies, and Alcoa, as many as 50 people at the negotiating table.
Yes, in the beginning it was pretty difficult,
Arguing and hashing things out,
adversarial.
walking away from the table,
Acrimonious.
coming back to the table.
Well, something had to be done.
I don't know what exactly happened to change that, but I think part of it was Ron Waddell.
There were times when I wasn't sure it was going to work. I was afraid that we were all going to have to just walk away and call it quits and turn it into a battle where the lawyers could make a lot of money.
About the time Ron Waddell got involved, the people at Alcoa did something unexpected. They owned up to the problem and vowed to clean up the bay.
Because we are an old company, we have a lot of legacy projects. And what I mean by that is when these plants operated in the 40s and the 50s and even the 60s, there were no regulatory restrictions on what needed to be done. And in fact, the whole art of toxicology was poorly understood. In the early 1990s, we'd come to the realization that we were going to have a lot that we would need to do.
The negotiators used a new approach called habitat equivalency analysis, in which environmental damage is compensated through habitat replacement projects.
It was a breakthrough. It was a huge breakthrough. You know, when you start talking about money, especially when you're dealing with corporations, that's when everybody gets nervous and upset. So if we leave it just discussing acreage and projects, they start to get excited.
In the Alcoa case, all sides agreed on a course of action. Nearly 1 million cubic yards of contaminated sediment was dredged from the bay floor. That's enough to fill up 2/3 of the Astrodome. The sediment was contained within this 500-acre island next to the Alcoa plant. Further south, an 11-acre oyster reef and a 70-acre marsh were constructed, all paid for by Alcoa.
$130 million is probably a good estimate. Nobody ever gave me a blank checkbook, but they always gave me a big checkbook, as long as I was doing the right thing with the money.
When a corporation can put their name on a beautiful project like a marsh or the piers and docks that they built, and have their name connected with something positive like that that's helped people, then I think that's good for them and it's good for the community. And
Once there's buy-in by the company and they're involved in the restoration and they see what we're trying to do, that's when they learn to appreciate the environment. Take Port Lavaca, for instance. It is an industry town. These people are dependent on jobs. However, they want quality of life as well. They want clean air, clean water. And this is a model for any area that works with industry.
most people would probably say that today, compared to 20 or 30 years ago, our water is cleaner and our air is cleaner, but that doesn't mean that you can stop. I mean, that doesn't mean it's anywhere near clean enough, or, I mean, obviously it's not. We still have problems.
But from now on, environmental negotiation may get a lot less contentious. What started out in 1993 as a shotgun wedding between industry and government has slowly matured into a bona fide marriage, for better or for worse, through good times and bad.